Part 33. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 322. When they returned to the cave, the zombie started to scratch the coffin board again. Lily was upset at this moment. This zombie had thick skin and flesh, so it didn't hurt to hit it. Lily had been with it for so long. As soon as I heard this voice, I felt angry in my heart, and evil grew in my courage. I couldn't help but reach out and pinch it. "Don't make trouble." The zombie paused, and then started to grab the coffin board again. At this time, its nails had retracted, but the lack of nails did not mean that its destructive power was less. It scratched a few times, and suddenly poof, there was a soft sound, and a hole was suddenly punched out of the old coffin. Lily and the zombies were both shocked by this turn of events. Lily couldn't help but sit up and push the coffin cover open. Sure enough, she saw herself. There was a hole the size of a finger in the sleeping place. She couldn't help but pull a handful of the zombie's hair and said angrily, "I told you not to make trouble, but you made trouble. Now that there is no broken coffin, where can I sleep? Where can I sleep?" Ah, the zombie opened his bright red eyes, pulled his stiff face, and made a strange sound in his throat. Even if it looks like a human now, it is an indisputable fact that its body has been rigid for thousands of years. It still can't laugh or make flexible expressions. At most, it can only make some incomprehensible sounds. Well, it didn't even know what it meant, so Lily simply ignored it. Just as she was about to jump out of the coffin to take a look, the zombie grabbed her again and stuffed her back into the coffin. No. Chirp, chirp, ho, fuss. Although there were some weird tones that she didn't understand, Lily still heard what it said, "Don't make a fuss." I don't know if it's because the most common thing Lily said when she spent time with it day and night in the past few years was not to make trouble. Now, no matter how Lily heard it, she felt that it was telling her not to make trouble. "Don't make trouble," Lily's heart moved. "Said again." The zombie stared with big eyes. He quickly replied, "No, chirping, we are going to make a fuss." This time it spoke more smoothly, but it still couldn't help but make chirping sounds. Lily was overjoyed, and quickly confirmed the fact that it could learn to speak from her, and she couldn't help but feel relieved. Tone. If a zombie evolves to the point where it can talk, it proves that it will definitely have certain communication abilities in the future. She couldn't help but think of wrong Li. If she couldn't defeat this zombie and didn't want it to hurt her, then if she could teach it to communicate with her, she and Wrong Li would have lived their lives like friends. Not bad. Thinking of this, Lily felt excited and couldn't help but say again, "Don't make trouble." The zombie glanced at her and suddenly stiffly bounced his body up. Although one hand was still on her body, he turned his head away. Sure enough, there was no more trouble. Lily resisted the urge to pull its hair and make it turn its head to learn to talk to her again. She couldn't help but also began to imitate the zombie's usual behavior of buckling the coffin board. "No, hey, we're going to make a fuss." The usual behavior of one person and one corpse was reversed now. The zombie endured it for a while and tried to grab Lily's hand, but it started to make trouble again. Chirp, chirp, chirp. These are the fixed words it usually wants Lily to recite the Tao Te Ching of the Heaven and Earth Gate. Lily didn't notice it before, but as time went on, she understood that when it emitted such a fixed tone, it meant that it was time for her to recite the Tao Te Ching of the Heaven and Earth Gate again. A zombie actually likes to listen to Taoism. Lily couldn't help but want to laugh. At the same time, because she heard it speak today, she was in a good mood and didn't resist too much. Of course, it was also because she was not this zombie at all. The zombie opponent, knowing the current situation and becoming a hero, started to read softly again. The zombie, who had been professionally rebellious for 50 years just now, quickly became as quiet as a baby, and calmness returned to the coffin. Lily kept reciting the magic formula in her mouth, and she also calmed down. The pure Taoist mental method wandered in her body, expelling the discomfort caused by the yin qi in the coffin, allowing her to subconsciously immerse herself in cultivation. During the training, he didn't notice the zombie, who was still a little stiff on weekdays, and subconsciously turned his head to glance at her. At the later stage of qi movement, she could concentrate on practicing even by breathing in and out Lily. But with the help of Taoist mental skills, she could practice much faster than ordinary Taoist priests, but no matter how fast she was still not as fast as the counter-attack beside her. The 2-year period that the young Taoist priest mentioned at the time passed quickly, but those masters and apprentices did not show up as promised. Lily could only guess that the young Taoist priest did not spend as much time as he imagined. It took 2 years to enter the period of fetal rest, so I didn't dare to attack the zombies around me, so I didn't come over. This gives one person and one corpse more time. In the past 2 months, the zombie's body has become softer. His body is no longer as copper-skinned and iron bone as before. Although it was shiny white before, the skin is like jade, hard and cold. Recently, its body has become much softer. When Lily poked it with her finger, it could actually move. It was soft. Although there was no temperature, this was enough to surprise her. Even the expression on this zombie's face is also rich, and the vocabulary is much more than knowing the gurgling before. The origin of Heaven and Earth sect Taoism. Its black hair, which was originally straw-like, is now scattered softly in the coffin. When you don't look at its eyes, which have slowly turned from blood red to orange gold, it actually has a somewhat handsome appearance, and that the appearance still seems familiar. You laugh. Lily doesn't go out to bask in the moonlight with it. Sometimes, after getting tired of reciting the Tao Te Ching of Heaven and Earth Gate, she will teach it some actions that humans often do, such as laughing, getting angry, crying, etc. If it is in a good mood, it gave Lily some face and learned it in a decent way, but the emotion didn't reach her eyes. The eyes that were getting golden day by day still had a cold look, even if it learned other people's expressions. It was so cool. Meow xiao, but as long as people see the expression in its eyes, even without looking at the color of its eyes, they can understand that it is not normal. This zombie must be in a good mood today. When Lily asked it to smile, it actually grinned, revealing its snow-white teeth. I wonder if this is because this zombie has never sucked blood and has been practicing by absorbing moonlight. Therefore, its teeth are as white as snow, and there is no fishy smell on its body. On the contrary, as it becomes more and more similar to humans, it also has a unique smell of vegetation found in mountain fruit trees, which is not unpleasant. If you ignore that it is a zombie, in fact, Lily doesn't actually hate it, and is even less and less afraid of it. Smile. It finished grinning, and soon returned to its previous expressionless indifference from the stunning sunshine look. Instead, it imitated Lily's look and ordered her to smile. Lily curved the corners of her mouth, and her smile spread from her eyes to all around her face. Although her hair had grown much longer now and spread over her chest, covering her small face, she smiled now. It should be because he practiced the authentic Taoist mental skills with her. She gave people a very warm feeling, and the zombie subconsciously approached her, with a somewhat doubtful look in his orange-gold pupils. It stretched out a finger as white as jade and pointed at Lily's eyes. Lily understood what it meant and pointed at its eyes. This move was regarded by it as a provocation, making it a little uneasy. He became happy, and he let out warning-like whimpers. He no longer had the pretense of being human before, and now he looked more like a beast. Lily did not move her hand away. The longer she spent with this zombie, the more she found that it did not hurt her. Even if she took the initiative to get close to it sometimes, it would instinctively hide away. Lily felt that this should be done. It was the reason why Rong Li gave his blessing to the zombie king in the first place, so that the zombies might regard her as the same kind and not harm her. She grabbed the zombie's face and held it back. Its skin became softer and softer, almost indistinguishable from a real human being. The feeling of being caught at this moment made it very uneasy, because its expression showed a bit of vigilance. It felt like a wild beast whose beard had been lifted, a little unhappy and a little nervous at a loss. Eyes. Lily pointed to its eyes again. It was not afraid. For this zombie, even though its skin softened and the color of its eyes changed, in fact, the eyes, skin, and body were not its weaknesses. Its cover should not be over the eyes, but somewhere it should be protected. When Lily pointed at its eyeballs, it didn't even blink. It was just subconsciously confused. Eyes. Lily nodded and said seriously, "Yes." "Yes," it followed suit, and its tone of voice became more and more fluent. Mouth. Lily slid down its eyes again, pointed it to identify its nose, compared it with her own nose, and then pointed to its mouth. She also opened her mouth and said mouth. This behavior seemed to arouse the zombie. Interested in it, its eyes soon became gleaming, and it was no longer as reluctant as before when it learned to speak. After it entered the flying corpse stage, its intelligence has improved significantly compared to before, although it is not as much as before. A true adult human level, but definitely comparable to a 10-year-old child. It just didn't want to learn before. Now that it's interested, it learned to recognize its nose and eyes in a long time. It can even remember what it has heard. When Lily touches all the fingers and soles of its body, it will ask again. When its nose is located, it points out accurately. In the following time, in addition to reciting Taoism every day, the zombie began to have another interest, which was to pester Lily to teach. It learned more and more words every day, and could now simply communicate with Lily, even if sometimes it didn't express its meaning completely, but in just 1 or 2 months, it did learn to speak. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 323. A zombie has gained intelligence and is developing more and more into a normal human being. This situation makes Lily feel a little uneasy. At the same time, it will inevitably remind her of the zombie king who was both a teacher and a friend when she was in that world. During the mission, there was only one zombie king in the world who could sneak into humans. Many zombies were either eliminated by humans before they reached his stage, or simply did not have such a chance. It was precisely because of the good impression wrongly gave her that Lily was wary of the zombie in front of her, but she really couldn't be prepared. She taught it to speak every day, taught it to learn to be a normal human being, taught it to understand human habits and many things that seemed normal to ordinary people but that zombies could not understand. For example, why humans don't sleep in coffins but sleep in mud walls, or why humans wear clothes, and what are the differences between men and women. Zombies can't understand these. Sometimes Lily is impatient to talk to it, so she drives it away. Go aside. She was about to enter the period of fetal rest, so she spent less time talking to this zombie recently. Most of the time Lily was practicing Taoism, until one day this zombie came back from nowhere with a bunch of clothes. Was thrown into the coffin and covered with Lily, who was practicing Taoism. When Lily saw him wearing human coarse cloth, her original dissatisfaction turned into a smile. You look more and more like a human being now. The color of its eyes has almost turned blue-black, and its fangs have returned to the position of normal human canine teeth. Its skin is even as white as jade, and it looks very handsome. It seems to be no different from the zombie king Wrongly, who has been with her for many years in Lily's impression. Except that the confused look on its face was different from Wrongly's calmness. Lily almost thought that when all zombies turned into zombie kings, they would look like Wrongly. But in fact, Lily seems to have lost her memory of what Wrongly looks like. It has been so long ago, it is like having a dream. When she wakes up from the dream, even if she still vaguely remembers the scene in the dream, she still has forgotten it. Issues. It's not that she has a bad memory, it's just that she instinctively wants to forget some things that may affect her. Human, the zombie grinned and smiled extremely handsomely, but the smile did not reach his eyes. What's the good thing about being a human? He speaks very fluently now. Even when Lily recently tried to teach it to write, it was learning it and learned it very well. Lily sometimes even wrote the formulas from the Tiandamen Tao Te Ching on the ground, and often let it face the words by itself. He gestured and asked Lily to teach him some characters he had never seen before. Just like when wrongly wanted to learn how to be a person with feelings, Lily often felt that such scenes seemed familiar. It's not good to be a human. But I want to be a human. Lily couldn't answer the questions it asked. This was what confused her the most after a zombie could talk. Sometimes the questions it asked made Lily feel a little difficult. After answering, she instinctively said what she was thinking, and the zombie showed a thoughtful look on his face, but said nothing more. The cave became quiet again. Lily was currently entering her period of fetal respiration, and Zombie lay quietly next to her. He imitated her usual way of reciting the Tao Te Ching of the Heaven and Earth sect, and began to recite it softly. The two have been together for so many days and nights, and Lily has recited the mantra countless times, and it has also been remembered in her heart. Now as the mantra is recited, the true power of the Tao sect flows from him into Lily's body, and with help, Lily was just one step away, and she successfully entered the period of fetal rest half a month later. At this time, the three masters and apprentices who had not seen each other for nearly 3 years came to meet again. Come to the door. Master, someone seems to have been here. It's been 3 years since we last met, and Menuno's charming voice didn't seem to have changed much. But to Lily's ears, the woman who made her wary at the beginning was no longer the same. It was just an insignificant insect, but she still pulled the zombie lying in the coffin. After silently lifting the lid of the coffin, she stuck it into the cave on the top of the mountain, found a hidden place, and peeled away the mess inside. The grass got in and hid inside. Oops, could it be that someone discovered this black-haired zombie? The young Taoist priest's voice was a little calmer than it sounded at first. It seemed that his youthfulness had faded and he had become much more steady. However, at this moment, his voice lost its calmness. All that was left was panic. Why don't you go in and take a look? He seemed to be a little angry. Lily's eyes flashed, and a few messy footsteps rushed in from outside. The Taoist priest at the head was thin and tall. He hadn't seen her for a few years. The cold master in Lily Chiao's memory was like this. He has now grown 3 long black beards, giving him a somewhat fairy-like look. His slender eyebrows and thin lips make his face look cold and ruthless. He was wearing a black and yellow Taoist robe, and he was carrying a yellow linen bag, which seemed to contain a lot of things needed to conquer the zombies. However, when a few people rushed in and saw the empty coffin, they were all stunned. Master, it seems that he really ran away. Menuno bit her lip and saw that the coffin lid was thrown aside crookedly. Her face turned pale. The charm left by the ancestor on it is no longer useful. Will that black-haired zombie? As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of several people changed. The Taoist priest did not even dare to look around, but waved decisively, "Let's leave here first." Several people came in a hurry and left quickly. After a while, the footsteps gradually faded away, but Lily stayed on the spot without moving. Just when the zombie beside her was getting impatient, the zombie who had just left suddenly the Taoist priest turned around and came back again. He took a look inside the cave and made sure that no one was in the cave. Then he reluctantly stretched out his hand and twisted his beard, and then he really left with hatred. Lily could tell from the Taoist priest's previous tone that he was suspicious and vicious, and now it seemed that he was right. When the people were far away, she pulled the zombie and jumped down to the ground. The coffin still stayed in the same place, but the Taoist priest had already left the prison. Although Lily was not afraid of the Taoist priest, she didn't want to stay here anymore. Alas, he sighed. Lily can go anywhere, but not the zombie next to her. Even though he looks less scary now, he is still not a human in his bones. What's more, he is a zombie. A zombie, there was no way he could avoid sucking human blood. Although this zombie should have never sucked blood since his transformation, Lily couldn't guarantee whether he would suck blood after entering the human world, so he couldn't stay close to people. Alas, zombie also sighed. He was very good at learning, but his eyes were cold and emotionless. Lily glanced at him and couldn't help but sneered, "What are you sighing for? Are you human?" Chaos arose from the beginning of heaven and earth. Zombie glanced at Lily and recited the origin of the Tao Te Ching of the heaven and earth section. Whether his uncle would speak on weekdays all depended on his mood. Sometimes he would rarely learn a few words from Lily. Sometimes I don't want to speak and I can't open my mouth to learn a word all day long, but it is the most obedient when Lily lets it read the Tao Te Ching of heaven and earth gate, and the word heaven and earth it speaks the most in a day. The reason why he recited this mantra at this moment, Lily guessed that he should be using this way to answer her question about whether he was human. Lily couldn't help but pull its hair twice more. For it, such an action was neither painful nor itchy. Apart from making it feel a little offended, it didn't make any other movements. It just grinned at Lily. But this act of daring to be angry but afraid to speak made Lily couldn't help but pull her twice more. Its hair is so thick and strong that it can't be pulled out at all. Recently, it has grown more and more handsome. The outline of its face is much clearer than before. Gradually, its pale lips began to show a faint color, and its eyes are fuller. Guanghua looked a little more human than the jade carving before. Lily stared at it for several times and finally decided, "We want to move." I originally thought that the zombie would have no objection to this matter, but unexpectedly when Lily wanted to let it go, it was obedient, but turned around and put the coffin it had been lying on for who knows how many years on its shoulders, and Lily asked it to put it down. At that time, it refused to agree anymore. Even when it was forced again, it pulled Lily to lie down in the coffin. Lily had no choice but to wait until the whole day passed and the sky got dark. He signaled the zombie to go down the mountain with him lying in the coffin. This hilltop belongs to Panlong Mountain. There are many Taoist temples on the mountain. The key point is that Lily still doesn't know if there are any real capable people and strangers among them. No matter how powerful this zombie is now, it will be difficult for two fists to defeat four hands. Panlong Mountain, if there are too many old Taoist priests, one person and one corpse may not be an opponent, so it is better to keep a low profile in everything. Unable to stay in Panlong Mountain, Lily originally wanted to stay away, but this zombie refused to go too far away from this place. Once it went far, it wandered around and wanted to run back. She had never heard that zombies also loved their homes. Lily was a little speechless, so she had to let it find a remote place. It stopped at the foot of a very desolate mountain with no Taoist temples around. A cave was temporarily dug and the coffin was stuffed in, but Lily was getting a little tired of living in a coffin for so many years. Human nature made her want to live in a spacious house instead of a narrow coffin. Fortunately, this zombie is very easy to use. Its nails are more effective than an axe. With just one stroke, the tree can be easily chopped down by it. Lily directed it to build a simple tree from the side. The scaffolding was quite simple. When it was almost done, Lily and the zombie went to the foot of the mountain again and stole a lot of straw from the farmer's house. The zombie ran as fast as the clouds and missed while carrying Lily. In just a few trips back and forth, it was done. The straw shed needed for the roof has been put up. The appearance was not very beautiful, but when Lily watched the zombie carry the coffin into the house, and then lay down in the coffin with him, Lily couldn't help but burst into tears. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan Erwr. Chapter 324. Except for moving the coffin from the top of Panlong Mountain to a room built by herself at the foot of a remote mountain, there is no difference in Lily's life. However, the zombie has changed even more than before, and its eyes began to change from gold to blue. And then changed from blue to ink. It became more and more like a person, and it began to look more and more like the face of Rong Li in Lily's memory that she thought she had forgotten. I don't know if zombies will become like this when they evolve later. Lily taught it the three-character classic for a while, but it didn't like to learn much anymore. Maybe it lost interest. Lily had to reteach it the characters used to write the Tao Te Ching of the Heaven and Earth Gate. In this way, it is willing to learn, and it can endure it. For a zombie, even if it learns to be like a human being, it has no self-control. However, when it is learning the Tao Te Ching of Tiandi sect, it can control its own nature, and sometimes it will learn to cross its legs like a lily. The way he sat down, he sat there for several hours. Because the mountain wall here faces the northwest, in terms of feng shui, it is naturally not as auspicious as the southeast direction. Therefore, even though the mountain road on the other side is covered with Taoist temples, the other side of Panlong Mountain is extremely cold and cold during the day. Shi Beihe was about to recite the Tao Te Ching of Heaven and Earth Gate with this zombie for a while. This zombie was no longer afraid of the sun, but it naturally didn't like the daytime. It liked to stay in the coffin during the day, and Lily was so excited to be with it. Over the years, she knew the habits of this zombie, and the zombie did not allow her to leave her sight, so she also lay in the coffin. Before she could start reciting the Tao Te Ching, there was a burst of shouting from outside. The evil barrier is going over there. Chase, because of the empty mountain top, this old roar rang out. The sound startled a group of birds in the mountains. The sound of fluttering birds flapping their wings as they take off can be heard everywhere. The sound of chaotic footsteps came, and someone said, "There's a shabby house here." When Lily was tense all over, she heard someone shout, "Search." The dilapidated roof of the house seemed to be lifted up by an invisible big hand. There was a bang of thunder and fire, and soon it burned vigorously. The zombie originally lying in the coffin seemed a little irritated, with its fangs sticking out from the corners of its mouth. Lily grabbed its hand and quickly turned over with it, kicking the coffin to the corner of the room. He opened the door and went out. "Everyone, is there any misunderstanding?" There was a large group of neatly dressed Taoist priests standing outside, all wearing Taoist robes and carrying long swords. They looked murderous. But I didn't expect that after opening the door of this dilapidated house, there were two people wearing ordinary old farm clothes. The man and woman came out. The man's head was lowered, and his dark hair was spread all over his body. His appearance could not be clearly seen, but his figure was thin and tall. The girl was about 17 or 18 years old. Her hair was not combed and her feet were bare. The face is a little childish. At first glance, she looked like an ordinary wild woman from a mountain village. The group of Taoist priests suddenly became a little embarrassed. The leader, an old Taoist priest with gray hair and a long beard, held a bell in one hand and a sword in the other. There was a hint of suspicion in his eyes. He glanced at Lily and looked at her again. She glanced at the shabby house behind her. "We are here to chase a monster that has become a spirit. I wonder, when did you two come here? How come you have never seen one before?" When he said this, one of the people in the crowd already had a beard. Taoist Nian also glanced over here. When he saw Lily, he was startled for a moment, then narrowed his eyes. A look of ecstasy appeared on his face involuntarily, and he subconsciously shouted, "Chiao Lily? It really is you." It had been several years since she came to this world. When Bai He Leng heard someone calling the name Chiao Bai He, it took her a while to come back to her senses. The middle-aged Taoist priest stood up and said, "I am your master. Do you still not recognize me, me?" Although many years have passed, when the Taoist priest said gloomily that it was a pity to have a cauldron, Lily still recognized him as soon as she heard his voice. We haven't seen each other for a while, and this Taoist priest looks much older. Standing among a group of well-dressed Taoist priests, he can't hide his shabby feeling. He is staring at Lily eagerly, with the joy in his eyes blocking the way. Can't stop it? Come back with me quickly. I have been inquiring about your whereabouts for the past few years and thought you were dead. After knowing the true purpose of the Taoist priest in front of her, how could Lily follow the so-called master back? She just glanced at the Taoist priest, then frowned and asked the group of people, I wonder if you immortals broke into the humble abode, but, what's important? Junior, Panlong Mountain is not very safe recently, you'd better leave here. The old man carrying the sword didn't even look at Lily. Although he could see that there was some yin energy in Lily, but because Lily had practiced the Tao Te Ching because of this, there was another orthodox Taoist spell that suppressed this trace of yin qi, which made the Taoist priest somewhat unable to discern the clues. Therefore, in his opinion, the yin qi on Lily's body might just have been living in the mountains for a long time, and it was inevitable that he would encounter it. It was contaminated by some feminine things, but there didn't seem to be any doubt on the face. Lily Qiao's master became a little anxious all of a sudden. He glanced at Lily several times with undisguised greed in his eyes. When others were greeting him to leave, his cold eyes might as well be looked at from the zombies on the side. Passing by, when I saw the loose hem of his clothes, I frowned a little at first, and then seemed to realize something. The muscles in his cheeks actually twitched twice, and he followed the group of Taoist priests away with his head buried. As soon as the group of people left, the zombie silently pulled Lily and jumped back into the coffin. Today it did not scratch the coffin board, nor did it ask Lily to practice the Tao Te Ching of the heaven and earth section. It could even learn the Tao Te Ching by now. He memorized the scriptures like a stream. On weekdays, it always made Lily practice non-stop. Today's situation was really a bit abnormal. Sometimes Lily felt a little bored when it asked her to practice the Tao Te Ching. Now that she stopped making trouble, Lily felt a little uncomfortable. Get used to it. What's wrong? The roof of the empty house had been lifted off, but the moonlight was shining unobstructed, making both of them feel an indescribable benefit. Although today was not a full moon night, moonlight essence was still a good thing for zombies, so Lily did not let the zombies patch up the roof. Anyway, the moon was bright and stars were shining, and it was unlikely to rain tonight. Chi Bei? What is Chi Bei? The zombie's face should be facing the coffin board, and his voice was a little muffled. It has been reciting the Tao Te Ching of the heaven and earth sect in the past 2 years, so its tongue has become much smarter when speaking, and it is no longer like before. It can't help but make weird noises. It's actually not stupid. Even when it was ignorant before, it was still sensitive. The Taoist priest mentioned Chi Bei several times. Once or twice, it can be regarded as a coincidence, but today, in front of so many people, he called Chi Bei's name, but Lily still responded. This made the zombie feel a little depressed, as if it felt a little bit of a feeling of being excluded. Chi Bei is my name. As soon as Lily said this, the zombie turned his head. Name? What's the name? In the past, because it was not a person, and Lily had been living with it, it was the only one that could talk to it every day, and its situation was similar, so it didn't need to call anyone's name, and neither did Lily. After spending several years together, he taught it a lot about its name, and even taught it how to read and write, but Lily forgot to teach it some of the most basic living habits of human beings. This is the disadvantage of living alone. Lily couldn't help but patted her head and explained softly, the name represents something different for everyone. After Lily finished speaking, the zombie turned its head, and the white jade-like face turned out to be, with a confused look on his face, he couldn't help but say, it seems like there are so many people here today, how will you distinguish them when we meet in the future? The smell is different, zombie said firmly without any hesitation. But humans can't smell the smell. To me, they are all the same. I can only tell them apart by their appearance, body shape, and name." Lily's answer made the zombie silent for a while, and then said, "So, this is the me you are talking about. Different from humans." Lily has always said that humans and zombies are different in the past, but maybe the zombie has never encountered the same kind before, nor has it dealt with humans other than Lily, so it cannot understand many things. Now because of it felt like it understood something. "So you are Chi-Bei," it couldn't help but ask, "then who am I?" Its fair and delicate face was not far away from Lily, and its pair of dark blue eyes reflected Lily's face. Except that there was no breathing in its nostrils, it was almost the same as a normal person. Lily didn't know what its name was before it died, but now that she saw this increasingly beautiful and handsome face, it slowly overlapped with the young man in white in her memory. The memory that she thought had been separated for a long time seemed to come back again in another life. As if she had entered that dream again, she subconsciously reached out and touched the zombie's face, and shouted softly, "Wrong Li." The image of Wrong Li, who had been with her for hundreds of years, who stayed by her side like a friend, and who finally let her die in his arms during that mission, overlapped with the image of the zombie in front of her. They seemed to be the same person. Personally, except for the fact that Lily saw Wrong Li later, he was more cold and less innocent at this time, more murderous and heavy, and less straightforward and simple at this time. It's like the same existence. But this is impossible. Li Yangzi once said that when she has the ability in the future, she can enter the same mission world again, but Lily doesn't know when she has the ability, and Li Yangzi is not in the starry sky at the moment. Not to mention that she is not Tao Bei at the moment, and the person she meets will not be Wrong Li, even if the two people look so similar. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 325. The zombie asked her name, and Lily suddenly remembered the boy in white who slowly walked out of the mist. He said his name was Wrong Li. It felt like the word Wrong Li came out of his mouth without any hindrance at this moment, as if nothing suited him more than these two words. Lily even thought of many things that she had never wanted to remember and had suppressed in her heart. She can call this zombie Wrong Li, which will give her the feeling that she is still accompanied by someone during this mission, which will make her feel at ease. Therefore, when Lily said the word Wrong Li, she first said the word Wrong Li to herself. They were all taken aback, but soon, she calmed down again. "Wrong Li," the zombie muttered to itself, and couldn't help but say again, "Wrong Li." This time it seemed to be confirming something, and a smile appeared on its face involuntarily. "So I am Wrong Li. You are Wrong Li. When people ask you your name from now on, just say you are Wrong Li." Thinking of the serious young man who introduced himself as Wrong Li to others, Lily pursed her lips. After she said this, after speaking, she quickly suppressed the chaotic memories that came out of her heart, but she calmed down. But the zombie in the coffin seemed to be a little excited, and began to scratch the coffin board with her fingers again. Lily stared. I glanced at it several times, and I could see its shabby sleeves. It was wearing a yellowed shroud. Because zombies are no longer living creatures, there will be no sweat on their bodies like humans, even if it is their own. They all changed into newly stolen coarse cloth clothes, but it still wore its shroud. Lily thought of the Taoist priest's malicious eyes when he left today. At that time, she thought that the Taoist priest might have seen her and wanted to use Lily Qiao's body as a cauldron. But now Lily thought about it. The Taoist priest must have seen the shroud worn by the zombie. Thinking of this, a layer of cold sweat broke out on Lily's back. "Get up, we're moving." Lily urged the zombies to get up without thinking. If her guess was wrong, then one person and one corpse would encounter so many people today. It wouldn't matter if they moved. They could continue living in another place. For them, this makes no difference to people who can barely eat or drink. But if her conjecture is correct, then once the Taoist priest suspected the identity of this zombie, he planned to conquer this zombie and get this body, And now one person and one corpse leave this place, it is naturally right. Move. Upon hearing this, the zombie who had just received the name jumped down without hesitation and carried the coffin on his shoulders. Just as it flew up from the broken roof, a yellow flag suddenly flew towards it. Although it after practicing for several years, I have now mastered spirituality. But in fact, he has never experienced a real battle, although he instinctively felt that the yellow banner made him unhappy. But it did not avoid it. On the contrary, Lily in the coffin saw the scene and quickly turned over and sat up. After forming a seal on her hand, she quickly took the yellow flag into her hand. He actually has some abilities. The Taoist priest sneer of he came, and the forest that was still dead just now suddenly lit up with dots of firelight. Groups of neatly dressed Taoist priests holding zombie conquering tools in their hands stood out from the grass one after another. I don't know what was used on my body, but it actually hid my scent. At this moment, the firelight illuminated the night sky, and everyone stared coldly at the lilies and zombies surrounded in the middle. Xiao Bei, I didn't expect you to abandon the master and actually get together with a zombie. Now I have to clean up the family with the Taoist priests and chase you back to punish you. Xiao Bei's former master was also standing in the crowd. At this moment, there were several Taoist priests with serious faces standing next to him, all staring at Lily nervously, as if the zombies could make them take a step back in fear just by rolling their eyes. Lily's heart sank. At first she thought the Taoist priest was looking for some kind of monster, but now it seemed that he was looking for some kind of monster, and he was coming towards them. It seemed that this group of people had identified the zombie next to them. Although they didn't know what they relied on to identify them, Lily instinctively felt that she and the zombies might be in trouble tonight. Why do you say he is a zombie? Lily suppressed her nervousness and stood up from the coffin. Every Taoist priest knows that zombies are formed after death, but the companion next to me is named wrong. Li, you can talk and run, but why do you look like a zombie? You mean it's not right if you say it's not? I will let you speak like a lotus tonight, but you would rather kill the wrong person than let him go. A tall man with a Chinese character face, a beard, a red face and a burly figure stood up. Except Demon Guard Deo, even if you kill 1,000 people by mistake, you cannot let one go. Xiao Bei, if you can abandon the darkness and turn to the light, Master, I can still let you live. Otherwise, don't blame me for taking you back and making you a blood sacrifice to the ancestor. The Taoist priest also shouted loudly, and many people took out moves in their hands. The corpse bell and some spare tools, some things in the hands of the little Taoist priests have no effect on the zombies, but some of the items in the hands of the old Taoist priests make the zombies a little restless, and it whimpers like a warning. Because it had never encountered such a situation before. Although it felt unhappy, it did not turn around and run away. Lily also jumped out of the coffin. At this point, these Taoist priests looked uneasy and well-intentioned. Not to mention that she now regarded this zombie as her former wrongly and her former companions. Even if they were not, it is impossible for her today to follow a Taoist priest who wants to harm her and leave the zombie who has been with her for several years but has never hurt a hair on her head. Huh! Stubborn, someone shouted, and many Taoist priests began to set up formations. The group of Taoist priests were mumbling something, and Lily could clearly see that, except for a few old Taoist priests, they were indeed somewhat sincere. Her ability and strength may have exceeded the fetal breath period. Only a few Taoist priests have reached the fetal breath period. Most of the Taoist priests are only in the Qi training period or even below the level of the Qi training period. In this way, it will be easy for her to escape, but because there are many things to restrain zombies in this game, the Taoist temple on Panlong Mountain has been prosperous for many years, and it does have a way to deal with zombies. Lily doesn't know if this zombie can escape. Run! Lily patted the zombie's hand and signaled it to carry her on its back, as several small flags flew toward her. She tied her arms into a knot. He quickly put the flag into his palm. This move greatly exceeded the expectations of a group of Taoist priests. An old Taoist priest with electric eyes subconsciously exclaimed, "What kind of Taoism is this?" This handprint is somewhat similar to the one left by the ancestor after the old Taoist priest with the words heaven and earth printed on his body said this. Everyone couldn't help but look greedy in their eyes, but Lily ignored it and directly urged the zombies to run away. Don't let them escape. The things left by the patriarch cannot be allowed to fall into the hands of others, someone shouted, and a group of Taoist priests quickly stood in the direction of the Bagua array, because the opponent had a large number of people. In addition, these Taoist priests threw some talismans from time to time, which quickly entangled the footsteps of the zombies. However, they were probably still a little afraid of the zombies, so they did not dare to pursue them at close range. Hand over the things belonging to the ancestor, separate from this evil obstacle, and we will spare your life, the people from Tiandamen shouted, and Xiao Bei's master couldn't help but said, "Taoist, this is not what we agreed at the beginning." Lily sneered twice and shouted something about slaying demons and protecting the Tao, but she didn't know how dirty the thoughts in her heart were. Although this group of people has strength in numbers. Now that the group came together and what she had just shouted, she didn't understand what this group of people must have discussed. Her heart was filled with anger. She flicked her sleeves and flung out the flag she had just collected in her palm. She held it in her hand. After reciting the incantation, she flung it out toward the group of people. Although she didn't know exactly which person to hit, because there were too many Taoist priests present and Lily's strength had reached the fetal stage, she still only heard a few screams when Banluo went out. This move angered the group of Taoist priests, and some people couldn't help but cursed, "The demon girl is really hateful. We can't hold back anymore. Senior brother Wang, if they escape, the people of the world will be in great trouble." Junior brother is right. Someone responded, and those powerful old Taoist priests teamed up to lay a thunder, and a burst of dense thunder struck down. Lily was not afraid, but the hair on the zombie's body was curled up by the electricity. At this moment, it became a little ferocious, and it couldn't hold it back any longer. It made a ho-ho sound from its mouth, and two fangs poked out. Sure enough, it's a flying corpse. As if they were sure of something, the old Taoist priests did not hold back anymore. They used various means such as flying sword spells. The zombie threw Lily on his back, and it was like lightning. He rushed towards the Taoist priest closest to him and grabbed it casually. The long nails that poked out at some point scratched the Taoist priest's intestines. In just a moment, wherever it went, it only heard the screams of a group of Taoist priests, and blood flowed all over the ground. Its body is now covered with talismans, and its movements are obviously slower than before. Lily's head and body are also covered with a thick layer of talismans. Many Taoist priests are still casting talismans while chanting spells. Although one or two of these talisman papers have no effect on the zombies, if there are too many of them, the ants will bite the elephant to death, but it will still show a bit of blackness on its originally white face. The zombies and Lily rushed towards the group of Taoist priests. As a group of Taoist priests scrambled to escape, an old Taoist priest shouted, "How dare you!" As soon as the Taoist priest finished speaking, the zombie that was originally rushing towards the ordinary Taoist priest suddenly turned around and reached into the chest of the old Taoist priest who was still holding the peachwood sword. The old Taoist priest who was not prepared at all was suddenly eviscerated by it. When he came out, his eyes widened, and the long sword in his hand suddenly fell to the ground. To be continued. P.S. 2 updates today. If there are no accidents, it should be finished, because I have already finished writing, but I will revise it again. Originally, the number of remaining words is almost 2 chapters. If the revision is completed and no additions are made, then 4,000 to 5,000 words will be sent together. If the revision is completed, if there are any changes, I will publish them in 2 chapters. I am a kind-hearted person. In addition, everyone guessed correctly, This is the prequel to Wrong Li, but it is not the male protagonist battle as everyone guessed. You need to be firmer in your stance. The reason for this story is actually that the pit was laid long ago. I have told everyone that sometimes the end of a story is not really the end. It may just be a beginning that I buried in advance. That's all. I have never tried this high-end writing method, but I have always envied the authors who can write like this, so I just. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 326. Brother, several of the most powerful old Taoist priests had already gone to one of them. Lily breathed a sigh of relief. As long as she cooperated with the zombies, even if she couldn't defeat these people, she should still be able to escape. Not difficult. This evil obstacle is too fierce, and it understands human nature and is very cunning. We need to find a way to cure it. An old Taoist priest couldn't help but said anxiously, the flying corpse is not afraid of the sun. If it escapes, it's going to be hard to find it again. Let it drink blood. It hasn't sucked human blood yet, so it's rational now. Once it drinks human blood, it loses its rationality and becomes like an animal. Qiao Bei's master was hiding at this moment behind a group of Taoist priests, who looked embarrassed. As soon as he said this proposal, a group of Taoist priests began to gather without saying a word. Lily heard something bad, and she wanted to stab Lily Qiao's master to death. It is true that this zombie has not drank human blood when she was with her. She patted the zombie's back and picked up the talisman stuck to it. It had killed some people in the melee just now, but it still had too many people on it. There were many burning wounds, some of which were open and fleshy, emitting an unpleasant smell. Don't drink human blood. She gave the order, and the zombie couldn't help but look up to the sky and howl, hoo. At this moment, a large basin of blood poured from the sky. Lily could only smell a bloody smell at the end of her nose and poured into her mouth, which was also a bit warm. She was so disgusted that she almost vomited it out. It should be the group of Taoist priests listened to Qiao Bei's master and collected human blood. The zombie was looking up to the sky and howling, but now Lily could drink some human blood, so it naturally tasted it too. Even if it's just a few drops. But its eyes quickly began to turn red. Zombies are inherently bloodthirsty. I had never tasted the taste of blood before, so I didn't know if it tasted good or not. But now that I tasted it, it became violent all of a sudden. Regardless of the lily still hanging on its back, it suddenly went crazy and moved toward the blood closest to it. A Taoist priest rushed over, his fangs sticking out. He opened his mouth and bit into a person's neck. Lily was so shaken that she felt dizzy and smiled bitterly in her heart, so she must not yell casually when something happened. This mouth was just waiting for someone to pour blood into her mouth. It's done, someone cheered in surprise. When Lily was jolted by the zombie's actions and almost vomited out, she only felt the blood of the Taoist priest whose neck was bitten open splattered all over her body, and the body quickly fell to the ground. Land. A group of Taoist priests began to recite. The zombies who had not responded to these voices just now began to feel uneasy. There was faint thunder in the sky, because the zombies used to practice with the essence of the sun and the moon. There is no reason why it has sucked human blood and has no cause and effect, so even if it should not belong to the sentient beings in the three realms. But it is still alive and well, but now it is framed by a group of Taoist priests. It has been stained with human blood and has started killing. It is not as difficult to deal with it as it was just now. It's like it's not difficult to kill a bad guy. After all, there are thousands of excuses to kill a bad guy, but to kill a good guy, you need to turn him into a bad guy and then deal with it. The so-called decent sect is nothing more than that. They keep shouting about exterminating demons and protecting the way, but in fact it is just greed. After all, if you can refine a flying corpse to serve as the guardian of the sect, the benefits will be endless. An unspeakable anger surged out of Lily's heart. The zombie was already like an enraged beast, biting anyone it saw. Lily grabbed its neck with one hand and saw it rushing towards the old Taoist priest. When the old Taoist priest resisted, Lily first used magic to trap him. It was only when the zombie bit the old Taoist priest's neck through that the old Taoist priest's eyes widened and he fell down with a look of reluctance. In the forest, which was bustling with people just now, corpses are now everywhere. The remaining Taoist priests are just struggling to support themselves. The zombies are swaying, the fangs at the corners of their mouths are dripping with blood, and their eyes are red. I want to walk towards these people. Naijan, you have killed so many people. I will train you to be a corpse guardian and guard Panlong Mountain for thousands of years. There were originally 7 or 8 old Taoist priests, but now there are only 2 left, and they still look embarrassed. However, when they saw that the zombies were obviously not as ferocious as before, they breathed a sigh of relief and started to form hand seals again. Xiao Beihe, why don't you come here quickly? This zombie has lost its humanity. Do you want to die in its hands? Xiao Beihe's master shouted. So many people had died just now, but he hid in time, so this he was still alive for a while, but when he saw Lily still staying with the zombies, his eyes showed a bit of anxiety. You should have already made plans. The purpose of subduing demons and slaying demons is just to get his training, right? Lily calmed down now and scratched the zombie's hair. She had been with this zombie for several years. I taught it babbling and speaking, and taught it how to read and understand human nature. But I didn't expect that the sapling would grow up quickly, and when it was about to blossom and bear fruit, it would be destroyed by someone. This feeling made Lily a little frantic, wishing she could kill all the people in front of her. No one paid attention to her, only the 2 old Taoist priests were left chanting incantations hard. The light in the zombie's eyes became darker and darker. It even had a face that was originally white jade and was filled with black energy again, and there was a bit of struggle in its eyes. Come on, make a ho-ho sound from your mouth. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Wrongly is not afraid. Lily reached out and touched its head. She didn't know if it was because Wrongly took care of her and gave her the Corpse King's love, so she also took this one. The zombie named Wrongly did not resist her, even when half of its rationality had disappeared. Thinking of Wrongly, Lily couldn't help but feel even more sad. When she was in Tao Beihe, she couldn't do much for Wrongly, and even died in front of him in the end. He taught her many things, and he even accompanied her for many years. Now it's the turn of another Wrongly, and Lily also wants if you do something for it, at least you don't want to see a zombie with the same name being trained as a walking zombie and serving this group of Taoist priests for the rest of your life. Heaven and earth have just opened. Lily suddenly remembered the Tao Te Ching of the Heaven and Earth sect that this zombie had practiced. Now that it had sucked blood, the nature in its bones suppressed its rationality. She didn't know if the Tao Te Ching could be suppressed in its body if it were deeper. Because of the negative effects of sucking human blood, but under such circumstances, she wanted to give it a try. After all, the worst outcome is to disappear on your own. The zombies were just captured. But it's better than being taken back by Lily Qiao's master and used as a cauldron. What are you going to do? Xiao Beihe's master instinctively felt that something was wrong, so he asked, but saw Lily muttering something softly in her mouth. Her voice was a little too low for everyone to understand, but everyone saw that she was originally seriously injured. The wounds on the zombie's body began to improve rapidly, and the chaotic color in its eyes began to slowly fade away, becoming bright again. It started to have reason again. How is this possible? An old Taoist priest couldn't help but exclaimed. The zombie, which had slowly woken up, pulled at the large and small red threads wrapped around its body. Because the Taoist priest had drawn talismans on it, it easily tore into pieces the body of an old Taoist priest. Seeing such a scene, the remaining old Taoist priests saw the opportunity and decisively began to throw out a handful of talismans, turned around, grabbed a few of his disciples, and started to escape. Qiao Bei's master was not very strong to begin with. He was able to get into a group of Taoist priests only because he made suggestions and provided opinions. Now that the old Taoist priest ran away, the remaining few Taoist priests who were not good enough were quickly killed by zombies. No, how is that possible? Lily Qiao's master turned pale with horror and took several steps back. Lily lay on the zombie's back, all her strength had been drained away. She included the vitality of this body in the Tao Te Ching of Heaven and Earth sect that she had practiced for several years. All were extracted to suppress the effects of sucking human blood on the zombies. Where is Menyunur? Lily coughed twice, her voice a little hoarse. Her. She was killed by me. Lily, please let me go. Menyunur has already done it. She was jealous that you wanted to become my disciple, so she was just cruel to you. My teacher has already done it for you. I've gotten my revenge, please let me go. Lily Qiao's master was slumped on the ground now. The zombie was about to kill him, but Lily reached out and grabbed it. Jealous about me becoming your disciple? Lily asked back, and the Taoist priest nodded desperately. She has evil intentions towards me, thinking that I fantasize about becoming the headmaster's wife, so. Lily thought about it, but she didn't expect the answer to be so simple and absurd. Menyunur wanted to be the wife of a Taoist priest, and was jealous that Lily Qiao might become the Taoist priest's cauldron, so she wanted to get rid of her. Such a simple reason actually cost a life, and from the Taoist priest's words, it can also be known that Menyunur did not end well in the end. He was indirectly taking out the anger of the original owner. He was able to figure out the reason before he died. Being able to fulfill the original owner's wish, Lily didn't know whether she should be happy or vomiting blood because of this answer. Did you make an appointment with these Taoist priests to take wrongly back? Lily's Taoist power was drained from her body, and her muscles and veins felt throbbing and twisted, and the smell of blood rose in her throat. She felt like blood bubbles were surging when she spoke. The Taoist priest nodded hurriedly. They asked me to do this. They want to capture this zombie to guard the mountain gate. As he spoke, there was a bit of panic on his face. Obviously, the situation was not necessarily what he said. Lily will not completely believe him, but today, there is no need to pursue him. Anyway, the Taoist priest will not survive today. She will not let him go, and neither will the zombies. Don't kill me, don't kill me. The Taoist priest shouted, while his legs kept beating. The zombies stepped over him, and green frost crystals quickly formed on his body. Qiao, Lily, Qiao Lily, a familiar voice called her, but Lily felt that her eyelids were as heavy as gold and she couldn't lift them up at all. The zombie, whose face was originally full of black energy, now turned into a face as white as jade. The fangs at the corners of his mouth returned to where they should have been, and the messy black hair that turned into yin energy returned to its original position. The previous appearance turned into a handsome young man covered in blood. Now he was kneeling on the ground. Looking at the figure in his arms, who seemed to have changed from before, he frowned in confusion, as if wondering why she could no longer smile and talk to him as usual. The zombie can smell the scent of the person in its arms, especially after what happened yesterday. This Lily gave it something to help it break through the final hurdle of the flying corpse. It can feel it, even if it is encountering yesterday's situation again. It could no longer trap it, but the zombie didn't understand why the people who could talk to it in the past stopped moving and ignored it. It felt a little aggrieved, and carefully stretched out its hand to push Lily several times. She was already furious, and it could feel it. This used to speak to myself. Lily Qiao, who could recite the Tao Te Ching with her, seems to be disappearing soon. This thought made the zombie feel a little irritated. It had been dead for who knows how many years. It had no heart or heartbeat, so it didn't know that what it was feeling right now was upset. Stop making trouble. It couldn't help but talk about what she often said to itself when its intelligence first emerged. It had always heard the words stop making trouble before, but in fact it didn't understand what it was at all. mean. When it first learned it, it was just an instinctive reaction, but now it seems to understand how Lily felt when she said this. Stop making trouble, it pushed Lily again, and its handsome eyebrows wrinkled beautifully. Heaven and earth first opened. In the past, it liked to hear Lily recite these the most, but now it felt that if she recited it herself, maybe Lily could recite it along with it. It kept reciting the Tao Te Ching of the Heaven and Earth Gate over the years. Accompanied by the days and months, these mantras almost seemed to be engraved into its bones. It memorized it, but no one responded to it. Zombies are originally emotionless. At this moment, Lily was dead and it didn't understand what it meant, but it made it feel angry. It felt as if it had been betrayed by heaven and earth. It began to push Lily's body up again. Stop making trouble, wrongly is calling you. It had a serious look on its face, but Lily's body had actually run out of energy when she gave it her life force to help it break through the realm of flying corpses. Wrongly is calling you, it said again. It fiddled with Lily's body and kept saying, stop making trouble, wrongly is calling you. The most common thing it said every day was stop making trouble. Every time it went to a place, it hugged Lily. It didn't mind that Lily's body had smelled of it. Until a few days later, when it appeared in a village, there were an old woman saw it holding the corpse and couldn't help but exclaimed, young man, people are dead, why don't you let them be buried in peace? Human, it remembered what Lily had said before, what was good about being a human. At that time, it didn't understand what a human was and what a zombie was, but now that it heard the word human, it became a little more interested. Human, aren't you a human? The person in your arms is dead, the ant hurriedly greeted the villagers, wanting to help bury Lily, and asked it back. It shook its head honestly, but no one believed it. It remembered what Lily said before, people should laugh, so when others laugh, it also laughs, and when others cry, it also learns to cry. It learned very well and was very smart, so no one doubted it. The people in the village asked it to bury the lily in peace, but it was reluctant to part with it. No one dared to take the lily away. The old Taoist priests who wanted to take the lily away would die, and so would others. This is its companion that has been with it for several years. It has been by its side ever since it opened its mind. How could it give up? It refused, and everyone thought it was crazy and that its little wife was mentally retarded after it died. While many people were still pitying it, it took Lily back to the original cave. It was a pity that no one spoke to it anymore, and no one read the Tao Te Ching to it anymore. Although it no longer needs others to recite the Tao Te Ching, but it has become accustomed to having people by its side. The emotionless zombie began to feel a little lonely for the first time. It felt like it understood how Lily wanted to leave Panlong Mountain and live in human society, because after leaving the realm of flying corpses, it felt like it began to feel that the boring practice was over. Let it get used to it, it likes people to be around it, it likes people to pull its hair, even if it actually felt offended sometimes before. During the period of time it lived under the mountain, although it didn't understand what a human was, it didn't stop it from becoming curious about Lily's former species. When the story about the death and injury of many Taoist priests in the Panlong Mountain battle spread throughout the Central Plains, the zombie returned to the cave holding Lily, who was almost a withered skeleton. She would not wake up anymore. Someone told it that the dead should be buried. For peace, just like a living person wants to live in a house, it remembers that Lily said at that time that the house must be repaired. He put her in the coffin that he had slept in for nearly 1,000 years. This was the home they shared before. After living under the mountain for a while, he also knew that people pay most attention to inheritance and repayment. Lily taught him a new life, not to mention that it could feel it is her relationship to be able to open up the spiritual intelligence, so it wants to replace Lily as a human being, while Lily sleeps in the coffin where it has been sleeping for many years. It began to dress like a human being, because Lily had disliked the birthday robe it wore before, so it began to change into a pair of coarse clothes to become like other people. It began to live in a house, even though it actually lived in a house at first. It was not used to it, so it began to practice the Tao Te Ching and recite the beginning of heaven and earth. It wanted to do something every day that it thought Lily would do, and even others would do. When someone asked it what its name was, it would be very serious. Tell others, my name is Rong Li. Originally it didn't know who it was, it didn't know where it came from, it didn't even know why it woke up, it didn't know what happened before, and it didn't care about what happened next, except for a coffin originally had nothing in it, but suddenly one day, the person who suddenly slept in the coffin talked to it and told it to stay away. It originally had nothing, but since it got the lily, it also has something to belong to. Own name. It's called wrongly, it's wrongly. Because when it first opened its mind, someone was with it, and someone told it that it was wrongly, and it was wrongly. To be continued. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 327. When Lily returned to the starry sky again, she breathed a sigh of relief. She was sure that her mission should be completed. This time, the original owner's wish was too simple. He just wanted to find out why she died, and before he died, she had already gotten this answer before, not only completed the mission, but also protected a zombie named Rong Li. Although she didn't know if it was the original Rong Li, she had no regrets about this mission. Her information reappeared in the starry sky. Gender, female, variable. Name, Lily. Age, 21. Intelligence, 76, out of 100. Appearance, 77, out of 100. Physical strength, 68, 100 full points. Force, 40, out of 100 points. Spirit, 50, out of 100 points. Reputation, 28, out of 100 points. Skills, 9 Yang Manual, 9 Yin Manual, Heaven and Earth Gate Tao Te Ching, Southern Gu Technique, Star Body Training Technique. Specialties, Intermediate Cooking Skills, Advanced Acting Skills, 5 Elements and Bagua, Slight Dabbling. Charisma, 52, out of 100. Collection, Corpse King's Love, Saint's Blessing, Angel's Heart, Dragon King's Promise, Fox's Charm, Mother's Love Like a Mountain, The Uncrowned King. Lily looked at these data, feeling a little melancholy in her heart. Even when she saw that her reputation points had been deducted several points, she didn't feel disappointed and uncomfortable. I wanted to talk to someone, but right now there was silence all around. It's a pity that the starry sky without Li Yangzi didn't give her any room to relax. In fact, Lily really wanted Li Yangzi to be here at this moment and asked her if she wanted to rest. But Li Yangzi's voice did not ring out. And she only felt that the world was spinning. Once again, people are unaware of things. The lady has been sleeping for 2 days. But the madam is very anxious, but the person next door has also slept for such a long time. I don't know whether it is true or not. 2 footsteps came from far and near, accompanied by the 2 little girls spoke crisply. When Lily woke up from the darkness, what she saw when she opened her eyes was the top of the snow-green curtain and the gauze hanging beside her, which was gently blown by the wind. The clear and sweet sound came from the wind chimes hanging in the corridor outside, which brought out a sense of tranquility. Severe pains came from the back of her head. As soon as her body moved, the pain hit her limbs like a tide. Lily closed her eyes subconsciously in pain and lay on the bed, not daring to move anymore. The door was gently pushed open, and 2 girls wearing light pink clothes and buns came in carrying wash basins and trays respectively. They glanced at the bed. Lily saw someone turning his face. Breathing slowed down a bit. I haven't woken up yet, but Madam has been crying a few times, a little girl sighed. After hesitating for a moment, he gently opened the door and went out with the basin in his hand. Lily closed her eyes, and a bunch of memories poured into her mind, with a sense of resentment and unwillingness. The huge plot made her mind feel a little painful. This time Lily entered a world of immortal cultivators and became a girl named Xia Lily. In this world where the weak eat the strong, Xia Lily's Xia family can barely be considered a member of the lower-class immortal cultivating family. An ancestor of the Xia family once reached the foundation building stage and was absorbed by the real immortal cultivating sect Wuji section. After joining the sect, he became famous for a while because he became an outer sect disciple. It's just that since that ancestor, the Xia family has never produced such an amazing and talented person until 100 years later, until Xia Beihi's generation. Xia's father married a total of 1 wife and 2 concubines. Although people who cultivate immortality should not like women, after finding out that Xia's father has no spiritual roots and may not even be able to reach the Qi training stage in this life, Xia Beihi's mother, Mrs. Xia, was the woman whom Xia's father had legitimately married. She gave birth to an only daughter, Xia Beihi, and the other 2 Tang. The concubines each gave birth to a son and a daughter. In addition to Xia's father's son being born a loser like Xia's father, Xia Beihi in the plot possesses the 2nd spiritual root of ice and thunder, while Xia Qianbing, another concubine of the Xia family, possesses the 5th spiritual root. Although the 5 spiritual roots are the most useless spiritual roots among all spiritual roots, after Wuji sect went down to the mountain to recruit disciples once every 10 years and it was detected that the 2 sisters had spiritual roots and might become immortals from then on, Father Xia, still ecstatic, when they turned 16, he sent them to the Wuji sect, hoping that they could bring more benefits to the Xia family, but from then on, the 2 sisters were pushed into a completely different situation. Because she is the eldest daughter, and she is very beautiful, Xia Beihi has been supported by everyone since she was a child, while Xia Qianbing is just a concubine, and she is very beautiful. She is ordinary, so her life in the Xia family cannot be compared with hers. Although the 2 are sisters in name, their status is actually very different. On Xia Beihi's 15th birthday, the 2 sisters accidentally saw her in the back garden. After a few words, they both fell into the flower pond. When they were picked up, they both fell into a coma. When she woke up, Xia Qianbing was no longer the concubine who was simply jealous of her eldest sister, but became a woman who, after failing in a battle with her eldest sister in her previous life, died and traveled to the future world, and then got a space. And Xia Qianbing returned to her original body after dying again. The 2 sisters entered the Wuji sect at the same time. Unfortunately, because Xia Beihi had outstanding dual spiritual roots, she became the superior senior sister of the Wuji section. The most outstanding talents of the past few years are together. And Xia Qianbing was just an outer disciple of the Wuji section. 200 years later, Xia Qianbing suffered all humiliation and suffering, and finally died in an accident. After her death, she was very unwilling. They were also sisters, but Xia Beihi could marry the head disciple of Wuji sect, but she almost ended up hanging out with casual cultivators. In the end, she died without any bones left. Her soul was floating in the modern girl named Xia Qianbing came to life and learned countless knowledge, self-confidence and her own unique charm. Then died again in an accident, returning to the world that made her unwilling to learn in the first place. Because Xia Qianbing learned a lot of modern knowledge. In addition, she had heard about some big things in this world of cultivating immortals, so she got a lot of benefits before everyone else, and she also performed surgery on herself to change her 5 spirit roots into a single spirit root genius for convenience. He practiced by himself, and after entering the Wuji sect, he accidentally met the outstanding husband of Xia Beihi, a dual cultivator, and had a happy night with him even though he was plotted against. In the end, she became pregnant with his flesh and blood, but she quietly left him while pregnant alone. Until the son was born who was very similar to that genius, and even had a single ice spirit root that was rare in 10,000 years. She herself worked hard to reach the foundation building stage when SpecialAbilities had no foundation building, and finally after that genius entered the golden core stage, it was discovered that his son was actually the son of that genius. The genius had been looking for his first woman. After finding Xia Bing, he found that she had given birth to him. Got a son. Seeing Xia Bing's attitude of avoiding her, he became even more interested in her. He forced her to stay by his side and became his concubine. Although SpecialAbilities and this genius had not held a double cultivation ceremony, everyone in the Wuji sect knew about their relationship. Now that her concubine, whom she had never paid attention to before, had robbed her man, she was naturally shocked. Unwilling to make a fuss, the consequences for such an arrogant person almost killed Xia Bing several times. The two sisters were originally incompatible with each other. Xia Bing actually hated SpecialAbilities a little when she died in her first life. Why are they two sisters the same, but she is worse than SpecialAbilities? Xia Bing has lived for several lifetimes, and she has a very cold heart. If SpecialAbilities doesn't offend her, it will be fine. Once she offends her, she will not care about the relationship between sisters, so she also takes action against SpecialAbilities, who genius originally had a certain fondness for her son at first, but as time went by, he gradually became more fond of Xia Bing, an ordinary-looking woman. In addition, she saw that she was cold and indifferent to him. She looks so flattering, and I actually like her even more. Therefore, she only pretended not to know about Xia Bing's actions against SpecialAbilities, and occasionally used her identity to help her. Naturally, Xia Bing ended up even more embarrassing. After nearly 100 years of quarrel, SpecialAbilities' talent with dual spiritual roots was naturally not as good as the single spiritual root created by Xia Bing's own surgery. When Xia Bing was about to enter the late stage of foundation building, SpecialAbilities had just reached the early stage of foundation building. From then on, the two people are no longer on the same level, so SpecialAbilities is naturally not qualified to be with that genius again. Xia Bing originally wanted to raise her son alone, but because the genius liked their son very much and wanted to take her under his wing, she wanted to run away at first, but later found out that she could not escape. Simply settle down. Xia was naturally angry at the thought of sharing the same husband with Xia Bing in the future, but she was willing to swallow her anger. The genius might not like her yet. Until 500 years later, when Xia reluctantly formed a pill, he had already become Wuji, the youngest nascent soul cultivator in the sect, and Xia Bing, who is in the late stage of golden elixir and is also about to form an elixir, officially announced that they have become a dual cultivation partner. Xia became the laughing stock of everyone in the Wuji section. As arrogant as she was in the past, she would be embarrassed later on. She had no shame to stay in the Wuji sect any longer. When she finally went out for training, she was snatched away by a ghost cultivator from the demon cult and used as a cauldron furnace. When she met the genius who had become an elder and Xia Bing again at a certain conference 100 years later, Xia, who used to be aloof, became a concubine who could barely survive in the foundation building stage, and she looked down on her. Her concubine became an elder of a large sect, and even Xia Bing no longer bothered to pay attention to her. When she was humiliated by Xia Bing's son, the little genius of the Wuji sect, the scene when Xia Bing smiled made her laugh. SpecialAbilities collapsed. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 328. Originally, SpecialAbilities wanted to make trouble with Xia Bing, but the ghost cultivator gave her a hard lesson and asked her to kneel in front of Xia Bing to admit her mistake. The two sisters who used to have different statuses in the past became completely opposite. Lily couldn't accept this result, and finally committed suicide under Xia Qianbing's contemptuous gaze and her son's ridicule and humiliation. When Lily came here, the thought that kept going back and forth in her mind was that she wanted to trample Xia Qianbing under her feet, make her kneel in front of him, and bear all the humiliation that Lily had suffered because of her in the past. The original owner had a lot of resentment and hatred towards Xia Qianbing. When Lily finished receiving this large part of the plot, her head felt so swollen that it hurt. She gritted her teeth and rubbed her head vigorously. After a long time, this drama the pain turned into dizziness, and he slowly calmed down. Although Lily's mental power has increased much more than before, for someone like Xia Lily who is good at cultivating immortals and is full of resentment, it is still difficult for her to completely suppress the instincts in her body. It's a bit difficult. This time Xia Lily and Xia Qianbing fell into the pool at the same time. Lily woke up early because her mental power had reached 50, but within a quarter of an hour, she heard footsteps outside. A woman's suppressed angry voice came. "That little bitch made my daughter unconscious, and now she's still awake." Lily didn't expect Xia Qianbing to wake up. She must have been reincarnated as a human 3 times, and she practiced magic in each life. Because of this, the reason why the mental power is much higher than that of ordinary people, Lily couldn't help but be a little wary when she thought of this. Xia Qianbing is blessed by God. Lived again several times. Her mental strength and character are tougher than ordinary people. Just because she has experienced it several times, she has been promoted very smoothly every time. This experience has brought her many benefits and enabled her to overcome many so-called psychological problems during her practice. Demonic problem. This person was cruel and ruthless after her rebirth, and Lily was not prepared to confront her when she was not prepared. Not only did this person have modern medical skills, she also had a space where she could grow exotic flowers and herbs. When practicing, he was already prepared with half the effort. If he was targeted by her early, Lily knew that he would definitely not get any good results. Therefore, she still pretended to be dazed. When a woman in a vermilion palace dress came in with a group of girls and women, Lily adjusted her breathing and pretended to be still asleep. She only felt a warm hand. After caressing his face lovingly a few times with hot hands, he carefully took it back. "Keep an eye on the lady. If she wakes up, notify me as soon as possible. Bring the jade honey collected at home. Moisten the lips of the lady." The woman gave a few instructions in a low voice, and sat there for a while. She took Lily's hand and rubbed it gently before exiting the room. She pretended to be sick for several days. In fact, Lily was not really in a coma. She had been trying to practice the introductory skills of the Wuji sect in the memory of the original owner, even though she had never been exposed to the skills of cultivating immortals before. Because of this, it was not very smooth to practice at first, but because Xia Lily had practiced it once before, the most important thing for Lily now is to get used to this method of operating mana. As long as once she develops the habit, she will after this body is well taken care of, when she enters the Wuji sect in the future, even if she doesn't have as many golden fingers as Xia Qianbing, she will at least not lose too much. It was nearly a year before the two of them entered Wuji section. Lily first lay on the bed and secretly got used to the muscles of her body for half a month. It was not until half a month later that she accidentally pretended to have woken up. Xia Lily's mother hugged her and cried for a while after she knew she woke up. Xia's father also appeared and comforted Lily for a long time before leaving. "Your father's heart is completely obsessed with that bitch now. Don't worry, mother will not let that little bitch Xia Qianbing go. She dares to touch my daughter, Xia will come to visit her daughter every day." Twice, no matter how busy she was, she never stopped. Now there was a look of resentment in her eyes. Lily frowned and reached out to grab Xia's tight hand. "Mother, please don't worry about this matter for now. Xia Qianbing and I will enter Wuji sect in the future, and we will deal with her later. If something happens now, it will not be good for you." Xia Qianbing in the plot is not a kind person, because her past experiences in several lifetimes have made her heart very cold and ruthless. Mrs. After a few words, her reputation was ruined by her tricks, and she almost couldn't stay in the Xia family. It was after Xia Beihe entered the Wuji section because of her daughter's status in the Wuji sect. Mrs. It was better, but she didn't live long in the end and died early. After thinking about it, she knew that her life must not be as she wished. Hearing her daughter's words of comfort, Mrs. Xia couldn't help but show excitement in her eyes. She didn't play much time in the plot, and she wasn't considered a good person, but to Lily, she was a mother who truly cared about her daughter. Xia the madam cried for a while, then carefully took out a sachet from her sleeve, and stuffed it into Lily's arms. Hold it carefully, this thing can be used in the Wuji sect later, and it will be in the Wuji sect in another year zone. You know this situation in the Xia family, and it may not be of much help to you. My son, you have to be more careful. This didn't happen in the original plot. Lily saw the look of panic in Mrs. Zhangde took the person and left. After she left, Lily opened the sachet. When she saw a few slightly turbid crystal stones lying inside, she realized that Mrs. Xia must have stolen the Xia family's precious spiritual stone for her. It's just a few pieces of low-grade spirit stones. At this time, the Xia family seems to have treasured things, but in fact, after Lily joins the Wuji sect, there will be 2 pieces of such things every month, but now Mrs. Xia loves her daughter. Lily hesitated for a moment, then accepted it. The incident of Mrs. Zone is 1 year later. A few low-grade spiritual stones are nothing to a real monk, but they are very important to someone like her who has not even entered the door of practice. If she wants to defeat Xia Qianbing, Lily wants to try a gamble. Of course, she didn't want to cause trouble to Mrs. method. Without spiritual stone training and Lily's unaccustomed to this kind of training, her progress is very slow. If she continues to practice like this, by the time Lily enters the Wuji sect next year, her body will be slightly smaller than ordinary people at most. It was just a little stronger, but the effect was not big. Lily waited for a month and a half, but the Xia family did not find out that the spirit stone had been stolen. When she asked Mrs. Xia again, she confidently said that the matter had been resolved. Lily was worried. He breathed a sigh of relief and took out the spiritual stone he had hidden. The method of using spiritual stones is not complicated. It is just a matter of using stones that store a small amount of spiritual energy to introduce these spiritual energy into your body. Because it is not a high-level spiritual stone, the spiritual energy inside is also limited, but for practice for those in the early stage, the effect was remarkable. When Lily used up several low-grade spiritual stones, she could already clearly feel the spiritual energy flowing in her body. Every day when she was recuperating, apart from meditating and practicing in the house, she spent her free time with Mrs. Xia who came to visit her, and spent the rest of her time in a daze. Xia Qianbing has been hiding in her yard and has not come out. Like Lily, she is probably waiting for the day when the Wuji sect will accept a disciple in a year. Once she enters the Wuji sect, she will truly step into the ranks of immortal cultivators. The most important thing is that Lily's mission has truly taken the first step. She took advantage of her nap to sit for a while, but unfortunately the effect was minimal. Without the help of the spiritual stone, Lily never felt the feeling of introducing spiritual power into her body in the past 2 days. Sitting down was just a waste of time. It just made herself uncomfortable, not to mention that she still felt a little sore in her waist and back after sitting for a long time. Although Xia Lily had good physical qualifications, her constitution was not necessarily that good, but this was also a common problem among many immortal cultivators, except for monks who specialize in physical training in addition to practicing spells. Most immortal cultivators are not physically strong. Lily suddenly thought of her star training technique and couldn't help but stand up from the bed. At this moment, she actually had nothing to do just sitting there. Without the help of spiritual stones, she had to rely on her own ability to meditate and practice. Even if she meditated for a whole year, it might not be as good as practicing with spiritual stones for half a month. The effort and reward were under the disproportionate situation. He decisively gave up the plan of practicing in advance. But she is not going to meditate. In fact, she can practice the star body training technique first. Although the Tao Te Ching of the Heaven and Earth sect does not seem suitable at this time, at least the body training technique can improve her physical foundation. It should be right. Lily jumped down from the bed. She tried to do the Xin Chen physical training movements. It was very difficult at the beginning, but after doing a few movements, once the sweat was discharged from the body, there was a very faint trace of sweat. Spiritual energy gradually began to flow into her body. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 329. Because this trace of spiritual energy was too small at first, Lily did not notice it. When she completed the 13th movement with difficulty, the feeling she had when she absorbed the spiritual energy in the spiritual stone came back again, and a stream of spiritual energy flowed along her body. The movements were slowly introduced into her body. When Lily noticed this, she couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. As her body trembled slightly, the spiritual power that was just like a stream slowly stagnated, and then slowly it collapsed again. The star body training technique can draw spiritual energy into the body. Lily was a little excited. After her body trembled subconsciously, she did not stop. Instead, she gritted her teeth and started to perform the next movement. As her movements stabilized, a trace of the spiritual power of heaven and earth was introduced into her body. The star training technique was originally to use the power of the sun, moon, and stars to transform the body, and use the endless power of nature for the body. When the body is transformed to the highest level, it can use the power of nature to compete with enemies and people, but Lily did not expect this. In addition to attracting the sun, moon, and stars, the physical training technique can also attract spiritual power into the body. This surprise is naturally extraordinary. If she can practice star training from time to time in the future, then not only will Xiaobehi's body be able to practice to the qi refining stage next year when she is 16 years old, she will also be able to practice both physical skills and magic, which is equivalent to two-way training. With cooperation, not only has the body been trained, but the spell has not yet been cast. Even if Xiaoqi Enbing has space to assist in the future, he may not be much behind her. It's just that she doesn't know if the basic mental skills of Wuji sect can be practiced at the same time as the star training skills. Lily didn't dare to try it at the beginning, fearing that she would accidentally ruin her life. After all, in her own body, star training, I haven't practiced physical skills to the point where I'm very familiar with them. She didn't dare to try it easily. Until 2 months later. This body can complete a complete set of physical training movements, and the mana in her body slowly widens the muscles and veins. Only then is Lily ready to start testing the mental techniques of the Wuji section practiced at the same time as physical training. During the mission in the interstellar era, Lily had already practiced the movements of Xin Chen Taijutsu into her bones and instincts when she was on the interstellar. Generally, as long as her body could hold up and complete these movements, even if she was mentally exhausted, her body would still be able to do it. She can complete a set of movements instinctively. In the past few months, she has been training her body's adaptability to physical training. It wasn't until 2 months later that her body had completely adapted to the physical training that she started doing the physical training movements. Therefore, she is not actually worried about physical skills. What she is afraid of is the way of mana operation that she is not familiar with. Lily starts to use the spiritual power brought by practicing physical skills in her body during this period. As she started practicing, a stream of spiritual energy poured into her body. Lily carefully guided the spiritual energy to flow through her limbs and bones. She was still a little cautious at the beginning until she finished a set of basic techniques. She only did 20 physical exercises. There was nothing wrong with her body, which proved that Lily's idea had some effect. Lily simply stopped thinking about these things, and instead focused on running her magic power. After completing one set of physical training movements, she started the next one. When Lily finished 2 sets of movements and then opened her eyes, her whole body was filled with excitement. There was an indescribable feeling of relaxation and joy, and a large amount of light brown and fishy sweat came out of her body. The results of this day's practice were actually better than the previous month of meditation, even if Lily was using low-grade spiritual stones to practice. When practicing, it may not be as effective as completing a complete set of movements now. A whole year passed slowly as Lily found a new method. Soon the time for the Waji sect to recruit disciples once every 10 years was now. The Xia family had already accepted the disciples half a month ago. She had already begun preparations and tried her best to pave the way for the children of this generation of the Xia family. When the day came when the Waji sect's mountain gate opened, Lily sat on a carriage and came to the Waji sect accompanied by Mrs. Xia herself. On weekdays, the Waji sect is hidden in the formation, and the surrounding area looks like just a thick fog. Only once every 10 years, after the formation is opened, can everyone get a glimpse of the true face of the mountain gate. Many casual cultivators and people like the Xia family have already. The declining immortal cultivation clan led its children, and they all crowded at the foot of the mountain. After the thick fog broke, 2 middle-aged men wearing the outer attire of Waji sect disciples walked out of the door. About 50 steps away from the foot of the mountain, the logo of the Waji sect was looming in the clouds and mist. One of the middle-aged men waved his hand. The Waji sect is recruiting disciples. You all line up one by one and come up from the bottom of the mountain to test your spiritual roots. After saying this, the outer disciple turned around and walked into the thick fog again without looking back. There was a commotion among the crowd, but Lily knew from her memory that in addition to certain spiritual root qualifications, Waji sect's recruitment of disciples also required a firm heart to follow the Tao. This series of stairs seemed to only have about 50 steps. The distance, however, is actually transformed by the formation, and is based on the perseverance deep in each person's heart. Those with weak perseverance will naturally end after taking 30 or 50 steps, while those with strong perseverance may not be able to stop even if they take thousands of steps. Of course, people with poor perseverance, no matter how good their qualifications are, will find it difficult to have a future after entering Waji section. However, ordinary immortal cultivators rarely have such squeamish people. Even Xiaobehi in the plot is gone. After more than 400 steps, I finally couldn't hold on any longer and arrived in front of the Waji sect. But Xia Qianbing after time travel and rebirth is different. Her perseverance is amazing. In the Waji sect competition in the plot, she relied on her training strength in just 1 year to walk nearly 1,000 steps. Because of this, Xia Qianbing during the Waji sect's apprenticeship ceremony, she shined brightly and took her first step that seemed ordinary but was actually extraordinary. Many people had already climbed up the stairs, and Lily naturally jumped off the carriage. Mrs. Xia held her hand, shedding tears but unable to say a word. Don't worry, mother. After I enter Waji sect, I will have someone bring a message to mother. Mrs. Xia is really not a good person. She treats the common children harshly, but she is really kind to Lily, as if she was even better than Xiaobehi in the original plot. Such a person really made it difficult for Lily to have a bad feeling towards her. She comforted Mrs. Xia several times. Mrs. Xia also knew that her daughter's future was important, so she only earnestly warned, if it doesn't work, come back and my mother will support you for the rest of your life. Lily's mission this time was to defeat Xia Qianbing on her way to immortality. She had no right to say no, but Mrs. Xia's comfort made Lily's heart warm. She said goodbye to Mrs. Xia Qianbing, who had a cold expression on her face, also got out of the carriage. At this moment, she had not yet transformed into a single spiritual root. First of all, she did not want to make a big splash when she entered the Wuji sect and attract attention. After all, she had lived several lives. Xia Qianbing knows very well the principle of shooting first, and secondly, when she was in the Xia family, her servants and her mother were watching her. She had no way to perform the operation on herself, so until now, although she has been practicing spells, but at most they can make her physically stronger, which will provide more benefits when she tests her perseverance in the Wuji sect's disciple recruitment ceremony. When Lily turned her gaze away, Xia Qianbing frowned, then turned her head away with a dull look on her face. Compared with Xia Lily's bright and charming face, her appearance was ordinary and lackluster, and there was nothing outstanding about her. However, the coldness on her face was quite noticeable. Lily pursed her lips and stepped on for many people, that is the ladder to immortality. She did not run up the stairs as hurriedly as others at first. You must know that many people may feel relaxed at first, but after walking 10 steps, the stairs gradually become more stressful. Many people may not even be able to run up to 30 or 50. She couldn't even walk without getting tired. There was enough magic in Lily's body. Although she had not reached the chi refining stage, a year of star training had greatly changed her body. A pampered girl could still walk after a few hundred steps. Even if Lily didn't want to be in the limelight, she absolutely couldn't fall under Xia Qianbing, letting her steal the show in this Wuji sect's disciple recruitment ceremony. Xia Qianbing didn't run away. She just frowned and glanced at Lily next to her. Seeing that she also looked calm and composed, she sneered in her heart, thinking that Lily was just pretending, so she started to concentrate. Go up to Wuji sect. This was the place where she had fallen. As early as when she traveled to modern times, she had prayed, hoping that one day she could come back and get up again from where she fell. Now God loves her so much and gives her more. If she was given a chance, she would naturally seize it. Even though her spiritual roots were much worse than Xia Lily at the moment, she still had to overpower Lily and let everyone understand that having 2 natural spiritual roots was nothing. In the future, she will step on Xia Beihe under her feet. After several lifetimes of experience, Xia Qianbing is very sure that she is no worse than anyone else. After walking more than 50 steps, due to the formation, the people and things below gradually became invisible. There was only thick fog around, as if he was alone in a world. Lily was not anxious or impatient. Walking on the stairs, competing with patience and perseverance, she was never the loser. The physical fatigue is quickly eliminated by the movement of mana in the body. Every breath and movement is due to the star training technique, so that Lily's body and pace are perfectly coordinated. Such movement hardly consumes her. It was not until after 500 steps that the formation gradually brought pressure. Every step not only tested her perseverance, but also consumed her mana, and she felt a little strenuous. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 330. Lily didn't know how long she had walked. She only felt that the originally short staircase in front of her seemed to have no end, winding straight up. But Xia Qianbing on the other side was not like her. Calm down, although Xia Qianbing's character is good enough, she still doesn't have the strength to match herself at this moment, so walking 500 steps has almost reached her limit. Coupled with the pressure from all around, every step she took felt like it was as heavy as 1,000 pounds. She was breathing heavily and sweating heavily on her forehead. The outer sect disciples in Wuji sect who were originally responsible for this assessment had already reported this situation to the inner section. Several golden elixir level elders of the inner sect were already alarmed by the fact that such a good young man could have such a character. Everyone came out of the inner door. Lily was unaware of all this, She just looked at the endless road ahead and kept walking forward. Xia Qianbing stopped in front of the 800th floor. Logically speaking, this result was already very good. Even among the Wuji sect, only Ye Weishang, the disciple accepted by the leader a few years ago, has such a result. However, she was unlucky. She met Lily, who was more determined than her and had practiced star training for another year. Therefore, she felt a little complacent after coming out, but after hearing that there were still people on the stairs when she didn't come out of the formation, and her good-for-nothing sister who was a genius with ice and thunder spiritual roots hadn't come out yet, she couldn't help but feel a bit of surprise on her face. Lily didn't count how many steps she had taken, but when she was struggling to hold on, the heavy fog that had shrouded her in front of her suddenly dispersed, and she looked very embarrassed now. Sweat stuck her hair to her face. The clothes on his body also looked wrinkled. About 10 steps ahead, you can already see the main entrance of Wuji sect, which was originally shrouded in heavy fog. The sky is now a bit gloomy, and the sound of thunder seems to be heard in the sky. An old man in green robe with silver hair and thin body appears. Stood in front with his hands behind his back, his figure resembled an ancient pine tree. You have been admitted to the selfless peak. Lily was walking up the stairs with her stiff legs when the thin old man turned his head. The chill of sight. As soon as he said this, the people standing behind him all had wry smiles on their faces. Lily rummaged through the plot memories, but couldn't remember who this old man was. However, Weavo Peak has a very high status in the Wuji sect and is refined. Wuji sect is divided into 7 major sections. Each peak has a real person in charge, and its strength is about yuanying. When the 7 peaks are grouped together, the real Wuji sect is formed, and the leader of these 7 peaks also serves as the elder of the section. In Wuji sect, once the nascent soul stage is reached, he will be automatically promoted to elder, which is an unwritten rule of various sects in cultivation. However, Wuji Peak is the most special branch of Wuji section. When Xiaobai worshipped one of the peaks, she accidentally heard someone mention that Wuji sect has another Wuji Peak. Master Zhangfeng is a hidden member of the section, the only supreme elder for many years. His strength has reached the late stage of divine transformation. It is precisely because of the existence of such an ancestor that the Wuji sect is the largest sect in the continent. The reason why the Supreme Elder has not been promoted when it comes to the integration stage, it is said that it is just to protect the Wuji sect and wait for the Wuji sect to have the strength to protect it before ascending. Because the status of this Supreme Elder is too special, and it is unknown how many years this person has lived, the previous leaders of the Wuji sect set up the Selfless sect specifically for him. In name, it is a sect of its own, but in fact many disciples of the Wuji sect for thousands of years are not even qualified to hear about the Selfless sect, let alone anyone who can worship the Selfless sect. I also asked Uncle Master to come over and test the spiritual roots. When the old man in black robe standing next to him heard this, he couldn't help but smiled bitterly. He glanced at Lily and motioned for Lily to go over. This old man in black robe was from the Wuji sect in the plot. The real person in charge of the teaching actually called himself uncle at this moment. Lily couldn't help laughing, but she still said yes and stretched out her hand to place her palm on the spiritual stone to test her spiritual power. The colors of purple and sky blue lit up on the spirit stone. Sky blue represented the ice spiritual roots, and purple represented the thunder element. In the past thousands of years, the Wuji sect has rarely received disciples with dual spiritual roots. At this moment, no one was waiting for them. With a look of ecstasy on his face, the old man in green robe had already fluttered his sleeves, and a small golden sword that was originally about an inch long turned into a long sword like a boat when it met the wind. He jumped on first and rolled up his sleeves again. Lily stood up involuntarily, and before she could stand firm, the old man directly stepped on the flying sword and disappeared into the clouds. A group of people were left looking up at the sky, everyone biting their lips, afraid that they could not help but scream out. "Farewell to my great uncle." The headmaster reluctantly took the headmaster of Kifeng and bowed down. Lily was a little nervous when she stepped on the flying sword. Although she knew in the plot that cultivators usually have their own flying magic weapons, this was the first time she stepped on such a thing, and she was still a little scared in her heart, especially when the long sword cut through the air. She didn't know what kind of material the sword was made of. The cold air came out from the soles of her feet. Then there was a strong wind all around. Although the old man in front had blocked most of the wind for her, the weather may be bad today. No, Lily could faintly see lightning flashing, as if it was about to thunder and rain. When the remaining wind in the gloomy weather blew on her face, it still cut into her flesh like a knife. In the plot, the original Xiaobai should have become a disciple of Master Feng Ling, who also has ice spiritual roots and is good at ice spells. She should have only heard about Wuzulf Peak, but she didn't expect that she actually became a disciple. When Lily was still a little excited after visiting this legendary mountain, the old man had already grabbed her collar and lifted it in his palm. The long sword that was originally at their feet flew to his hand very intelligently. He stretched out his hand and raised it. A majestic sword energy seemed to cut a gap in the sky. He carried the already stiff Lily into the sky he had just cut. After the figure disappeared, the muffled thunder that had gathered in the sky slowly dispersed again. Just now Lily was unable to close her eyes due to the wind, but now the energy around her suddenly softened, and she opened her eyes. The surroundings seemed like another world. She could only vaguely see it from the outside before. I saw nothingness, but now it is green. A powerful mountain stood in front of her. The top of the mountain disappears into the clouds. The scenery is like a splash ink landscape painting. You're fine, you didn't beg for mercy. I can't stay out for a long time, as it can easily cause a thunderstorm. The old man placed the soft ball of the little girl in his hand on the ground, and the long sword in his hand quickly turned into a thin needle. The appearance slipped into his sleeve again. With this formation, if you want to go out in the future, you must reach the golden core stage. Before that, you can only stay at the selfless peak. He finished these words. He glanced at Lily and said, Master is waiting for you at the top of the mountain. I hope you won't come too late. Lily was still reaching out to touch her messy long hair that seemed to have been blown into shape by the wind. When she heard the old man's words, a bad premonition came into her heart, and she saw the old man rising directly into the sky. His figure, after a few flashes, it seemed to turn into a black dot and disappear into the horizon. She was feeling tired and weak at the moment. Most importantly, the weird thunder and wind just now made her suffer a lot. Now she felt that the muscles and veins in her body were a little disordered. It was not easy. A mountain that has been climbed for a long time. Now that she had to crawl again, Lily couldn't help but lower her head and scratch the ground. She grabbed 2 handfuls of grass in her palms and watched the green grass juice spread in her palms. The surroundings were so quiet that she could only hear her own heartbeat. Lily was so depressed that she wanted to vomit blood, so she sat down and rested. After a while, thinking of what the old man said just now, his expression slowly became firm again. The old man said that she couldn't get out of this formation with her current strength. Since she couldn't get out, it meant that her way back was cut off. As long as she moved forward, if she couldn't get out, she couldn't get out. When you reach the top of the mountain, you can imagine that the ending that awaits you in the future may be to stay at the bottom of the mountain forever, or to die. Isn't it just climbing a mountain? There was no way she could fail in her mission. She wanted to fulfill Xiaobei's wish and surpass Xia Qianbing far in the future. If she wanted to win against a person with space, medical skills, and even perseverance, if only because of the little thing in front of her, if she shrinks from a small problem, then her mission this time is considered a failure. Li Yangzi was not in the starry sky. Maybe it was because she had relied too much on him in the past. Whenever something happened, Lily would instinctively want to call him. Now the sky was not responding, and the earth was no longer working. She had to rely on herself for everything. He stood up and practiced the star training technique on the spot. I don't know if it was because of the spiritual energy bathing in this place. After a set of star training techniques, the mana in her body that had been almost consumed quickly was almost half filled. Lily rested for a while, and then she was ready to find the way up the mountain. Her hair had already stiffened into one piece due to the reason that the old man had brought her along. Lily was furious and simply used her strength to cut off SpecialAbilities' full head of hair, leaving only after half of her fingers were shorter. She smoothed her hair, looked in the direction and walked towards the foot of the mountain. This mountain peak is a bit weird. It is similar to the mountain gate stairs used by the Waji sect to recruit disciples outside, but it is much more difficult than the mountain gate stairs. If Lily does not use her magic power every step she takes, then what awaits her is the image of her own body. It felt like she was about to be crushed, and a real pressure settled on her shoulders, making her feel like she was carrying a huge mountain on her back, making her a little out of breath. As a result, the consumption of mana is greatly increased. The mana is already very low, and it has to resist this pressure. Therefore, almost half of the mana in the body is drained with every step. This makes it even more difficult to go up the mountain. This mountain, it was too high to reach the top, so you can imagine how difficult it would be for her to reach the top of the mountain. To be continued. P.S. Second update. This story will be a little longer, so bring your fans, my dears, because I can shamelessly tell you that I have spoiled it. I told you, this story will be longer. In addition, as the story unfolds, everyone's desire to complain is getting stronger and stronger. I originally didn't want to create a book club because I am lazy, and because I am as cold as a flower on the mountain. I don't want to be exposed. Open the veil of mystery and elegance, but I can't let you complain, because the author may be beaten. So I set up a book club group. Some book club girls had set it up before, but I didn't join it at the time, so I thought about it and started another one. I will build a message board in the book review area to read the genuine girls' comments. Disciple fan value, please change your mother ID to enter. ID number, 239461614. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 331. Lily initially felt that the old man was deliberately trying to mess with her, but she may not be very smart, and she doesn't have the advantages of space and surgery like Xiaoqi and Bing, but she only has perseverance and courage that many people don't have. Cultivation of immortality is to go against the will of heaven. Since I have to fulfill SpecialAbilities' wish this time, I naturally can't give up halfway. It is not only related to SpecialAbilities' wish, but also related to her own life and future. She hasn't seen Li Yangzi yet, and hasn't waited for Li Yangzi to return. Even now, the faces of many people from previous missions flashed before her eyes. Every time Lily took a step, she stopped to do a set of star training techniques. At the beginning, she had to do a physical exercise every time she took one step, but before she knew it, she had to do another physical exercise after taking 2 steps. Later, she had to take 3 to 5 steps, or even 10 steps before she needed to do another exercise. Physical skills. There seemed to be no alternation of day and night in the circle, only the same scenery and the ever-changing seasons of summer and winter. One moment, she might feel like she was in a furnace, and another moment, she would feel like she was in the cold winter. It was also a way for her to go up the mountain. It increased the difficulty, but unknowingly, when Lily practiced the star body refining technique again, the spiritual energy she introduced into her body was much more dense than before. Her muscles and veins were slowly widened, and she did not notice that she had successfully entered the chi refining stage and even reached the foundation building stage. The road ahead seemed to be endless. Lily didn't realize that she had gone very far until she realized that she had walked countless steps without any signs of exhaustion of mana in her body. The lingering clouds and mist can be vaguely seen at the foot of the mountain, the surrounding area is pale, and the pine trees nearby are covered with thick snow. The surrounding area was so cold that her face turned pale. This kind of cold is not ordinary cold. Otherwise, Yixia Lily's own ice spirit root physique would not be able to bear such a poor cold tolerance. This kind of coldness seems to come from the bones of the soul, making people feel cold. She was already halfway up the mountain, and Lily didn't calculate the time at all. Under such circumstances, because she had no distracting thoughts, she didn't even notice when she suddenly reached the late stage of foundation establishment, until she entered the early stage of golden core. The mana in her body condensed into a golden elixir like crazy, and the feeling of being filled with mana almost made her body fly. Only then did Lily realize that she was almost at the top of the mountain. On this day of marching to the top of the mountain, she unexpectedly reached the golden elixir stage. When Lily was still in a dream, she climbed the last step. The old man in green clothes was sitting on the top of the mountain. The snow and flames that had appeared before disappeared instantly, and the surrounding area returned to a spirited appearance. When Lily appeared, a rare smile appeared on the old man's face. Very good. At this moment, Lily was in a state of embarrassment, and her face could not look as bright as before. But his eyes were firmer than before, and the old man threw a token to her: if you want to embark on the path of cultivating immortals, you must be determined and determined. Your heart for the Tao is so strong that I have never seen it in my life, Lily. For a while, she couldn't tell the reality, and there were illusions in the formation. The scary thing was that Li Yangzi called her back to the starry sky and asked her to change her mission. After a while, Lily came back to her senses and respectfully stepped forward to order her. The cards were taken. Now that we have reached the golden elixir stage, if you want to practice my swordsmanship, it is not considered buried. The old man threw another jade tablet to Lily, motioned for her to put the jade tablet on her forehead and read it, and then said, originally you are a sword cultivator. Although you have dual spiritual roots and are a little less talented, you are better because of your diligence and perseverance. When practicing swordsmanship, even if you are a little less qualified, perseverance is indispensable. Lily followed the old man's instructions and put the jade plaque on her forehead. There were many things recorded in it, most of which were the old man's comments on swordsmanship. Lily breathed a sigh of relief. The old man only asked her to open a cave by herself. Then ducked and disappeared. After finally climbing to the top of the mountain, she met such an irresponsible master. If Lily hadn't sensed the old man's unpredictable strength, she might have thought that the old man was here to fool her. She found a random place by herself, thinking about the scene mentioned in the jade tablet, and tried to dig out a hole using her magic power to create sword energy. Although it was not very beautiful, it was good enough for her to live in and repair. 11. Lily is also satisfied. She didn't know how many years had passed on her way up the mountain, but now her long hair that had been cut had grown back, which showed that a lot of time had passed. This mountain is full of spiritual energy. The old man teaches her sword skills every day. Lily was a little confused at the beginning. What the old man taught Xia Lily has never heard of or seen in the plot, but the effect is also very remarkable. Lily has never touched a sword before. In just 50 years, in addition to practicing swordsmanship every day, she spent the rest of her time walking on that mountain road repeatedly. Decades passed in a blink of an eye, and Lily's direct strength reached the middle stage of Jindan. Not to mention, even if she does not have the sword embryo of her own magic weapon, she can control objects and hurt people at will. It is conceivable that once she has her own magic weapon and is connected with her sword embryo, in the future, how powerful must the flying sword be? I will teach you for another 50 years at the latest. You have learned a lot in the first 50 years, but in the next 50 years, you will learn as much as you can. After the old man said this, he taught Lily every day as expected. The things were a bit profound. Regardless of whether Lily could understand them or not, she kept them in her heart. As her mental power became stronger, Her memory also grew. Some old men taught her how to use things she didn't understand. Forcibly write it down and think about it again and again. 50 years have passed in a blink of an eye, and Lily has entered the late stage of Jindan as early as 10 years ago. The old man has taught her for nearly 100 years. Now he summoned Lily to him. How can I accept a disciple like you? Son, it's fate. In the early years, I got the wood that leads to the vitality of the sky and refined it into a sword embryo. Unfortunately, this thing doesn't match me. You have the spirit root of thunder, so you went directly to get it and use it as your natal magic weapon. Lily could tell that the old man meant to say goodbye to her. After all, the two had known each other as master and apprentice for nearly 100 years. When Lily heard this, she couldn't help but feel a little sad in her heart. Master is going to retreat. Practitioners have been in seclusion all year round, often for thousands of years. It is nothing new. If this old man had not accepted a disciple, he probably would not have left seclusion. He had been in seclusion for nearly 5,000 years. Some people in the Wuji sect have heard of his name, but many people are not lucky enough to see his face. They all think that he is dead. Now the old man is in seclusion again. When we meet again in the future, we don't know what age it is. What month it is. The old man's eyes softened, and he smiled slightly and nodded to Lily. Don't worry, the master is not in seclusion, he is just to avoid the thunder and disaster. You have been studying for a long time, and you should go out to see the world, otherwise you will not be able to live in the future. How to avoid inner demons. In fact, there is no need for the old man to persuade Lily. She will leave the selfless peak sooner or later. There is also Xiaqian Bing outside. She wants to avenge her original owner. Naturally, she cannot be trapped in one place forever and practice. She was just feeling it before. Just send it. When Lily came out of the selfless peak, Lily couldn't help but let out a long sigh when she saw the selfless peak disappearing into nothingness again. Beyond the Weavo peak, the 7 peaks of the Wuji sect stand out. In the middle is the place where the Master Xuanyanzi and the elders of the peaks usually discuss business. The Sutra Pavilion and the Alchemy Pavilion belong to different peaks, and Lily this time the innate vitality sword embryo that I want to get happens to be on the top of Jianfeng, and among the 7 peaks, the leader of Jianfeng happens to be the Master Ye Weishang, who is known as the most talented person in the Wuji sect for thousands of years. The real person Xian Yinzi. In the plot, Xia Beihe and Ye Weishang were childhood sweethearts who trained together and grew up together. In fact, she often went to Jianfeng in the plot, but Ye Weishang didn't pay much attention to her, but for those who went to Jianfeng, Xia Lily was very familiar with the road, and could almost walk it with her eyes closed. Even though there was a new soul in her body at this moment, her body's instinct was still there, making Lily couldn't help but move toward the sword. Walk towards the peak. When Lily came back to her senses, a layer of cold sweat broke out on her back. Her body was no longer under the control of the original owner, but the original owner's feelings for Ye Weishang were so deep. Even if her mental power had grown to over 50, still almost got it. But fortunately, she was originally going to the direction of Jianfeng. The sword embryo left behind by her master happened to be left in Jianfeng. This time she happened to go to retrieve it. Because Lily did not have a magic weapon of her own, the old man did not give her any extra treasures, talismans, etc., so even though her strength had reached the late stage of the golden core, she still had to rely on her own legs to walk towards the sword peak. Along the way, I met many disciples dressed in Wuji sect costumes. When many ordinary disciples saw Lily, they may have noticed that she was a bit unfamiliar and stared at her curiously. It was not until Lily came to the foot of Jianfeng mountain that she was noticed. Stopped. This is Jianfeng, please don't walk around randomly. An inner disciple wearing light blue clothes frowned and stopped Lily. Seeing that she was wearing ordinary coarse cloth clothes, with her hair hanging down behind her, She looked like although she has a bright and charming appearance, there are very few ugly female cultivators in the cultivation of immortals. Therefore, these disciples guarding the mountain were not fascinated by the beauty of Xiaobehi's body at all. On the contrary, he motioned for her to step back further. As ordered by my master, I came to Jianfeng to find the true master, Lily explained, and the disciple guarding the mountain sneered twice, "If you don't leave, don't blame me for not caring about our friendship." He put on a fighting look. "Come on, I already have magic formulas in my hands." To be continued.